Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka. It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast where every 2 weeks we come together on this podcast and discuss an anime we've recently watched in a book club format, and then we take our discussion and turn it over to you in our comments section. So feel free to jump in and tell us where we're right, where we're wrong, or even just ask your own questions. This is what it is all about, free-flowing discussion that currently is one-sided, but not supposed to be. We are talking about the anime Undead Girl Murder Farce. And to do it, I need the help of my co-hosts. So we're going to start off with the Stoker to my Dracula. It's Jeremy.
Hey.
Jeremy, what anime would you list to the audience to let them know your taste?
So I would say Bungo Stray Dogs. If you're looking for an anime that has mystery and fun, and it's got historical characters, which are not quite the same thing that we're dealing with here, but it's a lot of fun.
My daughter, so there's no bigger fan I know of Bungo Stray Dogs than my daughter, and I have to hear about it 4 seasons later.
Oh yeah, that's right. I saw the 5th season's out, airing right now.
Yeah, that's all she talks about.
Well, I mean, I can say season 1 was. I liked season 1.
Yeah, we just saw season 1. Some cool characters show up later. There's some really good writers.
Oh.
Also, I did get my daughter into classic literature. She reads a ton of classic literature now.
Oh, that's cool.
She wants to read all those writers. All right. We also have the Dumas to my D'Artagnan, Jason.
I love how you come up with these weird off-the-ball references that nobody knows.
No, come on. Don't do that. No.
No, but
Bram Stoker, Dracula.
Okay. Yeah.
Writer for Dracula.
Okay.
So D'Artagnan is the Three Musketeers.
Musketeer. I knew that one.
Dumas must be the
4th Musketeer.
Author. He's the author of Three Musketeers.
Sorry, I didn't.
But I love his name. I picked him for the name Dumas. Go, Jason.
That was Du Hast Mitch. Oh wait, no, that's German. My anime I'm picking is 91 Days. I really liked that one, and this kind of gave me that kind of same aesthetic.
Good pick.
Man, that is a throwback. Wow. Our early days.
Yep. And my name is Troy, and my pick is Moriarty the Patriot, mostly because anything is better with Sherlock in it. All right, we're going to keep this spoiler-free right now. There will be a spoiler section later, but just so you know, we're just going to give you a non-spoiler review of what we thought of the anime. Jeremy, why don't you start us off?
I really liked it. I was kind of surprised. It came out of left field for me because when I read the description and just by looking at the cover art and everything, I thought, oh, okay, so this is mostly about vampires and stuff. But vampires play a relatively small role in this story. It really is more about the 3 main characters that you see there and the mysteries that they solve and some cool, short but good fight scenes, well choreographed. And the personalities are great. The world is really interesting. The art is beautiful. Yeah, I really liked it.
All right, Jason, your thoughts?
Really interesting take on this whole idea of a monster world. And it's very nicely done whodunit. The investigations are really cool to watch. The writing's really good. But also this idea that we've got this society where monsters and humans are trying to integrate, and they're trying to or at least it seems to be the beginnings of integration with each other. It is also interesting to see. So there's some really cool world building. But I enjoyed myself a lot.
So this was a recommendation by Gamer Dad from Twitter not too long ago, and it's scary how well he knows
I know.
not only our taste but my taste. This anime checks so many boxes for me. It's hard to be objective about it. I don't know if like the world building's that great, if the characters are all that deep, but it's a whodunit. There's a heist in the middle of it. There is literary characters everywhere. There are classic monsters everywhere. And honestly, the main characters' relationships and the way they banter with each other was a joy to watch. I had so much fun watching this. It's one of my anime picks of the year, for sure. It's definitely up there. But I could probably say objectively, it's not as good as some of the top anime of the year, but man, I loved it personally. So, good pick. Not me. Even though it was my turn. All right. What did you guys think of the opening and closing?
Opening was good. I really liked the visuals. The music was good. And also one thing I appreciated is there was enough tells to keep you like invested. But also like I didn't feel like it spoiled anything. Like even though it revealed some characters early. But I also love that they put in this aesthetic feel of 1800s in the opening. That was neat. And then the closing was okay. Not much to write home about.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. I also liked that they decided to go the route of showing the characters engaging in activities that they wouldn't actually do, like exactly the same, but it's the same thing in concept, right? Like you had some fight scenes between certain characters. Those fights never took place exactly like that, but another fight took place that was close enough. And so that was pretty cool because, well, it's kind of cool sometimes to see OPs that show you exact scenes from the anime. If they actually take the time to animate stuff for the OP that isn't even in the anime, that's impressive.
Yeah. I think it's a bop for one thing. It got you all excited every time, showing lots of characters and their flair, and then the ending was also there. I want to say more about the ending. I like that black and white imagery they were using, almost like a photorealistic look to them. And at the end, they have the cage that's sitting open, except for in the final episode, the cage just has the cover over it. I don't know what that means, but I love it when the ending slightly changes because of the story we've just seen. So that was cool.
That is cool. I actually
skipped it, didn't you?
Yeah, but I think okay, so I have a
did too.
Crunchyroll subscription now. Yeah, and so skipping things is Crunchyroll really makes it easy. And so I don't know, it's kind of the anime's own fault that I was skipping it because I wanted to get to the next episode. Like it wasn't even a rush to get done. It was a what's going to happen next? Who done it? Tell me more. Show me more. So like it's not that I didn't like the outro. It was just that like the anime was that good. I didn't even get to enjoy it.
Just want you to know, viewer, I sit through the outro whether I love it or hate it. Like it is a rule I have. I'm gonna have a comment on this. All right. We're gonna go to the spoiler section here in a moment, but first we're gonna announce the next anime we'll be watching in case you do not want to go into the spoiler section with us. And I think we can all say we recommend this anime, so we hope that you do check it out before it's spoiled. But our next anime is Konosuba, an explosion on this wonderful world. This is the spin-off of normal Konosuba that focuses on Megumi before she joined the harem.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, is something technically wrong, Jason?
If we want to be, if we want to be accurate, a harem would be a group of women that are like fawning over the main character. This is not that anime. The Konosuba is more three terrible people group up as an adventure group. Or four terrible people.
Terrible.
We are trying to be accurate, of course. All right. So that will be our next anime. It is now time for the spoiler warning. Jason, did you know it's time for the spoiler warning? It is.
So, what does it mean?
Well, when you drop the spoiler warnings, it means we get to say whatever we want from now on. No, we are going to
You
be
should
talking.
probably give one though.
Yeah, we're from here on out. We'll be discussing the plot of Undead Girl Murder Farce and the characters and theories we have. So if you know what's, we might spoil something from even the future because we're so good at deductive reasoning. Did anyone solve any of the mysteries?
I
No,
had
I got
a
the
couple
first one wrong.
feelings for the last one, but I made a wild guess on the first one and was correct. So I don't really want to say that I solved that one. It was more of a, I feel like it's that one.
Okay.
But yeah, I did not at all get like the overall arc of what happened, but I did guess who it was.
All right.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
spoiler section. We can talk about it here in a moment. Spoiler section. So please, if you're listening on, there will be spoilers for this anime.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We start our story in Meiji, Tokyo, the year 30. So we are in the 1800s. Victorian England is happening over there. This is a world where all monsters exist, and most are coming to learn to coexist with humans. But Japan has just gone through a major purge where they're trying to remove the supernatural out of Japan. So most of their oni and other yokai, anything that's supernatural for them, they have removed. And then we meet up with one of our three main characters, who is a arena fighter. Cage. he fights supernatural monsters as a show.
Oni UFC.
Yeah, basically.
And his name is Suguru. So your guys' thoughts on Suguru?
This character was fun. No, I wasn't quite sure if I should feel sorry for him or if I should be cheering for him, but he's smooth, he's funny, he takes his plight of his situation very well. He doesn't dwell on it and feel sorry for himself. So because of that, and also he's always the showman, and I think that's really cool. So I had a really good time watching him.
Yeah, he's really endearing. Definitely my favorite character. He's both jaded and has a zest for life at the same time, which is really unusual to see. Normally you get one or the other, and a character is really just a caricature of that, overemphasized. But not with this guy. Like, there's moments where he talks about things like what he says to Aya Rindo, the head in the birdcage, where she asks him, like, well, you're going to die. Why are you trying to live? I know.
Can you imagine if people have no idea what we're talking about? Like, did he just say a head in a bird cage?
Head in the bird cage.
Just gonna drop that out of nowhere.
Go with it. Just go with it.
Roll with it.
Where she's like, you both want to die and live, and he's like, yeah, I figure if I'm in the arena fighting and the Oni takes control of me, it's just gonna be a bunch of jerks that want to see blood and slaughtering. They're the ones that are gonna die. So, I'll go out with a bang, and so he's got like this jaded side to him, but at the same time, he's constantly just pulling out anecdotes and telling stories about like ancient Japanese history and just some really funny stuff. And he's got a fantastic sense of humor. He's always joking. And I can never really tell where his strength tops out. There's like one fight where I'm pretty confident that he genuinely lost. But in everything else, it just kind of seemed like he was outmatching everybody by far and just holding back constantly.
Well, and I think the main reason for that is because of his anti-healing or anti-regeneration powers, right? So that's one of the reasons he was created. We come to find out is because he's half Oni, he's able to counter a lot of different monsters' abilities. let alone their, and like the biggest one is their regeneration. So when he hits like a vampire, the vampire doesn't just immediately heal. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think one of my favorite aspects of him is that as the self-proclaimed apprentice to the main character, where like in a Sherlock Watson situation, Watson is always like, "What's happening, Holmes? Explain it to me. I am but a child to this world, and I understand nothing." Well, he's clearly nowhere near as smart as her or as deductive as her. He's able to keep up and ask the right questions on the things he doesn't understand. They don't play him off as an idiot, but he plays himself off as an idiot, which they call out. And honestly, as fun as he is with his jokes and his banter, the showman banter when he fights is second to none. My favorite thing is just his relationship with the other main character, Aya. Their connection, the way they joke with each other, the way they tease each other. It's fantastic through and through, and their huge amount of respect they have for each other. Where there's one time where he goes out to do a fight, and she says, "This is the main show. Like what I just did is what we do, but this is what we're here for. This is what he does." But when he references it, he's the starting act. She's the main show. They both have huge respect for each other's role in this team. You don't get that a lot. Usually, like there's clearly a more important character. Yeah, I love the relationship for all three of the main characters, and Suguru is one of them.
actually, you make a good point. They share the spotlight really well because one's really good for that action comedy side, and then you've got the other one that's got the smarts and the schmarmy, but also the cutting, verbal cutting. So like, I didn't think about that, but that's a good point.
I just realized I didn't do my pre-show. No worries. All right, so one night he is followed by a mysterious young woman holding a birdcage, and when he confronts her, she attacks him with a gun, and they have a small fight, and this ends up being your classic, "Hey, we're anime characters. We had to test each other." But the person talking is not the lady in the maid outfit holding the cage. The voice is coming from the cage, and we meet our other two main characters. The first is Aya, who is literally a head in a cage, and they explain she is a monster, but one that's completely unique. There's only one of her in the world, and it sounds like she was created this way.
Mm-hmm.
But she is the immortal, and she cannot die unless killed by an Oni. An Oni can damage her. And an Oni did damage her, but just her body, and her head continued living. So she's kind of half dead. But because she can't die, she has to keep going on as a head. And she's actually here to have him finish the job. She doesn't want to wander around her entire life, immortality, thousands of years, in a cage. So this is Aya. Let's talk about her next. What do you guys think?
My first issue, actually probably my only issue with this whole anime, physically, I don't think there's a way she could produce sound. Like she has no lungs, therefore there's no air being forced through a voice box, and so therefore how would she speak? So, but that's like my only nitpick.
Well, what on that line of reasoning? What about like every time she turns her head? What about when she uses her teeth to hold a door shut? What, like?
Oh, okay,
using
hold
her
on.
neck as the brace?
That's got to be a translation error because no one tried to open that up to that point. I don't think because they did say I used my teeth to hold it closed, but I think she was holding on so when they opened it, it would pull her out. Because that's what happened when they opened it. She comes flying out.
Well, I thought it was because it was spring-loaded, right? Because when they did start to open it, the guy that opened it got whacked in the face because of the force of that door opening. So that couldn't have been him just opening it. I kind of thought it was a spring-loaded door, and she was literally holding it shut, like she was saying. And I was like, what, are you bracing your neck against the base of it? Like, how?
No, it reminds me of like Bionic Man, or Bionic Woman. She's got the one arm that's like a
Oh yeah,
robot
what it
arm,
does
but then a
to her
regular.
spine.
And then like she can like put one hand on the wall and then like rip a door open. It's like, no, you're gonna pull yourself into the wall and
Yeah,
bust your head.
exactly.
Yes. But
Yes.
there we go. No, I really, really love this character. And I didn't think I would because they're just a head in a birdcage. But like I said, the writing is fantastic. Where not only do we get really cool deduction and like observation, but also the observations she does have really good payoffs. And also she's funny. Like her, like Troy mentioned, her banter with Suguru is really good.
Yeah. I think had they not included, and we're in the spoiler section, so I'm just going to say it. Had they not included Sherlock Holmes, I would have thought she was just a discount Sherlock Holmes, right? I would have thought, oh man, she's just copying him. The writer of this manga just really likes Sherlock Holmes and wants to try his hand at being Sherlock Holmes. The fact that they included Sherlock Holmes changes that dynamic completely. Now, to me, she's actually a really entertaining and respectable character because she's not trying to be Sherlock. She's trying to compete with Sherlock in the story written by the same guy. That's really cool. You don't see that a lot. Normally you have an antagonist for Sherlock or something, but to have an actual competent competition for him, this was really cool. And I just love the idea of her just being a head in a birdcage, because I love really weird, like unusual, strange storytelling devices that I haven't seen elsewhere, and that was definitely one of them. When I saw that, I was like, I don't know what they're gonna do with this, but it works really well.
Definitely my first thought. Yeah, when we read the description when this was suggested, is like, how do you do a head in a cage and make that a main character, make that entertaining? And they nail it. One of my favorite things is her own humor about her situation. There's the scene where they're with the vampires and they're having lunch and they're like, do you need to eat? And she's like, no, I gained a pound last month. And they look at her like, what? She's insane. And Suguru's just like loving it, like, oh, that's a good one, master. Stuff like that. Her constant jokes about not having a body is fantastic. And yeah, just again, the way she fits in with the whole dynamic of the team they have. And then, I love a good whodunit, and you got to have a quirky detective to really make that work. And she's, not having a body, that's pretty quirky.
Yeah.
All right, and then we have our third character, Shizuku, the maid carrying the cage. Thoughts on Shizuku?
Sorry, I was having some acid reflux.
Second dinner.
No, right.
Yeah.
No, she's. I think her banter with Suguru is what makes me really love this character. Like, she's just always serious, always on mission. Never a moment of reprieve for herself, which ends up leading to really great banter between them. And like, Aya's like, hey, show him what we think about that, and then she's like strong arming him or beating him. But and then near the end, her ability, like she's like trying to put her own deductive reasoning into practice, like trying to do what her master does, but like knowing that she's falling short. She's just like, no, wait, I think I got something, but wait for my master to get here.
Yeah.
So, she's probably one of the more complex characters in this story, which is one of the reasons I really like her.
I had a little bit of trouble with her. I like all the things you mentioned. I just was wondering, like, where she fits into the dynamic of the group, right? Because she's got the combat, but Suguru kind of handles the combat. She doesn't bring any deductive reasoning to the table. She tries later, which is really cool because it's like giving her a bit of a character arc to change from what she is. But I think she's very unexplored right now. I think there's a lot of like we keep getting hints at the backstory. Like we saw a flashback where she looked like she threw a knife and killed a werewolf as part of a circus show, well, blindfolded. There was also like she's talking about like when she goes up against the vampire, and the vampire's like, "Oh yeah, you know, I bet you never had it like this." Yeah, and she's like, "You're horrible. I've had much better." And I'm like, okay, so she's got a lot of backstory that she's alluding to, and we don't know, you know, like if she's just a human, how is she possibly keeping up with people like the vampire and like Suguru? So I'm very curious about her, but at the same time, I don't know. I'm kind of torn on her. I think she has to be there because they need more than just those two characters to be able to handle the kind of threats and scenarios that are going to be thrown at Suguru and Aya. But I'm kind of waiting for her to blossom into a character that, at least to me, I find more interesting.
Well, you got to have two walking people so that one person can hold the cage while the other person
You're
does
right.
the fighting.
That is true. How many times did they like throw the cage back and forth? And I kept thinking about poor Aya. Like, you know, you would see sometimes, yes, as you would catch it and her head like bangs against the side.
I was wondering if she's like on a stake in there, or is her hair tied down to keep it?
Yes. Yeah, it looks like she's got like this collar at the bottom. And I thought, oh, is that collar like a socket that,
right?
You know,
yeah, that's what my
no, that's just her hair.
But yeah, exactly.
Actually, the bird swap scene is great.
Lacy choker.
I love the brother sister dynamic between her and Suguru. I want to explore it more. I actually agree with Jeremy that I think there's a lot of potential here. I think that we need to explore her more. I do worry that they're using her a little bit for like, well, we gotta have someone for fan service. We took away the body of the other main character, and we need someone for fan service.
That's a good point.
She's not exactly drawn fan servicey though.
In a couple scenes, she is.
She certainly gets thrown into some fan servicey scenes.
The fact that they made Carmilla her rival, her enemy that she has to constantly fight twice in this anime, and Carmilla's whole thing is like, I want to do things with you instead of just
here's
battle
an aphrodisiac.
You.
Right.
Now fight me. What I want to say is that I really like that they gave her a rival. That's really cool. I just worry that it's just so that we can constantly undress her in battle. In the final fight, there was a joke about her not having panties, but then of course they had to joke on it again, and I'm like, oh, come on, guys. No. Oh, no, now she's bleeding at the thigh. I don't feel like they crossed the line. I just worry that that's all she's there for. So I agree with Jeremy that I want to see more with her. But her dynamic in the group is perfect, so keep developing that. I don't have a problem yet, but I can see red flags. Also, I didn't notice this until right before the Carmilla fight, but in the OP, there's Carmilla like on top of her. But you can't tell. It's just, and it's very much in the background of what's going on, and like pencils sketching. And I saw that, was like, what is going on in the background of this OP? And then the Carmilla fight happens. I'm like, oh, that's what's happening in the background of this OP.
Well, and the weird thing is that Carmilla gets away a second time, and so I'm like, okay, so they need to leave that open because they need to be able to have this happen again later. Yeah.
Yep. All right, so Aya's deal is, like I said, she wants to be killed. And as alluded to, Suguru's deal, he eventually will give in to his monster self and go berserk and kill everybody. And she's like, hey, if you do what I want, kill me, I'll help you find a way to preserve your life. And he's like, I won't do it, but I will help you get your body back. And she's like, okay, well, then I'll tell you how to preserve your life. You have to consume me. Doesn't matter what, blood, snot, saliva, whatever you want. And
basically, she's All Might.
Right. Okay. Like I felt like it kind of fit in a world of vampires though. Like you have to have
Yeah.
my essence in you. He chooses
That's fair.
saliva. So their way to
This
keep
is-
his
God, this is such a weird scene.
they have to tongue kiss.
Yes.
But
Kiss a spit in his mouth.
Yeah, I was about to say it's less about the kissing and more of like the and it's like and like you hear
Yeah.
gulping and it's just, this is
Yeah.
gross.
Well, and
Plus,
then
he's like cradling her head the way you would normally see people kissing, and so it's either showing them or it's showing the shadow, and it's so like he's sucking on the face of this decapitated head. It's just so weird. The visual's so weird.
So
then-
nasty.
and then the
Yeah.
third dynamic is Shizuku, who is in love with Aya, so she's watching her girlfriend get Frenched by this other guy that she hates, and he's like, "It's a medical procedure."
Yes.
That's the end of the first episode. They make this deal, and they're gonna go off. We also see, hey, the guy who did surgery on me and made me a half monster. He had an M for a cane. And if Victorian London's around, a guy has an M for a cane. There's always the one. There's only one character that can ever be. It's never Mario.
Monster.
Yeah.
It stands
Mario
for
Monster.
Okay, yours was better. Worked on that Mario joke for like a week, man. Monster off the top of your head. That's way better.
I don't know.
Terrible. I have one complaint about this anime. This is probably my only actual complaint. Is I have no idea why this episode is the starting episode.
It's a prologue. Yeah.
We've seen so many anime where they start like in the middle in media res, right? They do a story arc, and then they do a jump back in time. Here's how they all met. And usually when that happens, I'm like, kind of unnecessary. We can just go. And this time I was like, no, we totally needed to do that. And especially because of what happens in the next couple episodes, like the way the vampires are introduced to the main characters. I'm like, this is perfect for setting up like, wait, is the cage talking? The maid's not the one talking? What is going on with these three? And then slowly revealing them. If you skip the first episode and then watch it as the fourth episode, I think this is a better anime. I strongly disagree with the placement of this first episode. Nothing wrong with it in its own, but I really wish I didn't know their whole deal going into what happens next.
I could see that. I remember watching the first season of Witcher backwards, and that was better too.
So learning about their dynamic through the eyes of the vampire family would have been
Right.
better.
And then getting a full explanation once the vampire story was done.
Mm-hmm.
And you could have even done it like they're on that bumpy train ride and Suguru has a dream about how they met. Like you could easily shoehorn it in there between the France and going back to London.
You wouldn't even have to do that. A lot of anime just do it artificially.
Right, just hey,
inject it right in.
Here's the background. We'll be back to the normal story in a minute. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen it 100 times, and every time I've always been like, oh, I guess. But this is the one time I was like, I that was the right way to do it. Yeah. Oh well. We're in eastern France now, and we see a man hunting a deer, and he misses his shot, so he just tackles it. And then we see him taking the deer to his son, and we learn that these are vampires. This is a vampire family. The Goddard family. This is Lord Goddard. And they have a discussion. Go ahead.
But there's like instantly you come to realization that they're at least part of society, like whether they are people know they're vampires or not, we don't know yet. But like, his first thing is, yeah, I promised so and so I'd try this gun, so I felt obligated to at least shoot it.
Yeah.
Even though I'm terrible shot.
Yeah, this is his younger son is out there with him, and they have this discussion about being in peace with humans. And he mentions like Dracula's dead. That's a major point that's happened. So since he was the king of vampires, they're all trying to act and behave much better and fit into human society now. Now that Dracula's gone. Question for you guys: did Suguru kill Dracula?
I got the impression.
Yeah, okay. I got that too.
Mm-hmm.
When he fights the killer here,
Yeah, I missed that.
he says, "You're good with
Dracula
Dracula or something like that."
He said Dracula had more bite.
Yeah, Dracula had more bite. Oh, poor Dracula doesn't even get an on-screen death. They go back to the house.
He showed in a back shot when they were talking about there was like a group of warriors that were particularly good at taking out monsters during the purge. And it showed one of them turning around and it was him. So before he got the Oni infused into him, he was actually already good enough to take out really, really powerful monsters. That's the impression I got. Maybe I misinterpreted it, but that was the visuals it presented.
I guess I never thought about the timeline of which one he did first, but you're probably right. Huh. I want to make a couple quick points. First off, there's a lot of dark scenes, especially in this arc, that were hard for me to see on my TV. I had to turn off lights and make it easier to see for myself. And that's probably TV settings, so I don't know if anyone else had that. Second, this is a whodunit, and there's a lot of quick shots of like little clues, so they don't cheat on it. I didn't find any cheats in like when they do the wrap up. I felt like everything was there that I could have caught if I had noticed them. But please know that in a recap, I'm not going to do the whodunit justice. So don't whodunit the Baka 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 podcast. Don't solve it here. Go watch the anime and try to solve it. But we will eventually reveal the murderer. But don't be like, hey, you missed a clue that was really important, Troy, because I probably will. Yeah, they go back to the house. They're talking about how a hunter recently attacked them, and then they find a silver stake that they had taken from the hunter in the storage room with burning blood on it, which means it's vampire blood. And they search the house. They find the older son. They find the daughter. They find the maid, the butler. And then they go to the wife's room, and she's dead with a hole in her heart. She's been staked.
Oh, and just blood everywhere. Like, it seems like it's like way more than what even anime usually does.
Yeah.
We get the press coming to ask him, like, does this change his thoughts on humans and stuff? One of the press members, the reporters, is Annie Kerber. Does anyone know if she's from something? She's a 14-year-old orphan reporter that just shows up in the story over and over.
Annie?
They make it as if she's important and that she has zero impact on the entire anime.
Wait, is she Orphan Annie?
Maybe. She's a little redhead.
Please tell me that's not. Oh, no.
She is a little redhead.
Well, she's not listed on the wiki as like a front page character, so. But she is mentioned in the list of limited number of characters.
But yeah, I'm not seeing anything literary. Okay, so we'll just leave that put a pin on that as a mystery. Still, huh? Okay. So he says he's going to hire a detective, which in this case, he's hiring a monster detective, which happens to be what they call the cage user, because everyone thinks Suguru carries a cage around and solves crimes. So he's known as the cage user, but he's obviously not the detective. Again, that would have been a much better reveal. Like, hey, here's the cage user. And you're like, oh, this guy's the detective? He's trying to... He show up in a carriage and he's like trying to get the carriage guy not to take his money and like promise him a double trip. And the vampires, or they send the driver in. He's going to stay with the vampires. They go in and meet the vampires themselves. They say hello, and then they hear Aya talking. And of course, they all look at Shizuku, who's holding the cage, and they're like, how is her voice over there? And then they meet Aya properly. She's like, hey, I'm a head in a cage. They go to the scene of the crime. There is a bottle of holy water there, but it's covered in dust, and she has him rub it on his jacket, and the dust doesn't come off. And then she basically, looks at all the things, says, hey, the timeline for how this murder went down and the time it had to have happened while you were out hunting doesn't make a whole lot of sense. She does this great bit of like, hey, hold up fingers as I make these 7 points, and he does, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he gets to 6. He's like, Master, I'm out of fingers. What do I do? She's like, well, stick out your tongue. Okay, but what am I gonna do for number 7? So she doesn't do 6 and 7. She just says the 5 points of, and I don't remember them specifically, but it was like, hey, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
They then have the lunch with the vampires who eat what looks like tomato soup. Even Suguru points out it's kind of weird. They just take their blood and make it look like a fancy meal, but they're just slurping blood out of a bowl. But they feed Suguru, and he certainly enjoys that. Aya starts asking about where everyone was, establishing alibis, and basically tells them one of you are the killer. They're like, well, no, it would have been a hunter. And she's like, no, but that wouldn't work. It had to have been someone from in this house. The 2 people without alibis are the butler and Raul.
Yeah, the older son, right?
Younger. Was the older son without an alibi?
No, it was the older son that didn't have an alibi.
Right.
For the time frame that they had established.
Of the murder, right. Because
it was like between 1 a.m. and 1:30 a.m. is where they originally thought that.
Brother had gone out with the hunting. That's right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They end up upsetting the little girl. She runs out. Aya admits to Suguru that she is just stalling. She doesn't quite have it figured out yet. But then the older brother threatens them, and Suguru's like, "Oh, it must be him." And she's like, "No, because did you see his hand? See, whoever touched the silver stake had to have burnt their hand, and all the vampires' hands are clean." Mm-hmm. That's where she's getting stumped. They end up going to the forest with Lord Goddard, and there they he gets attacked by a hunter, and he goes to kill him, and they stop him, and Aya asks this hunter questions, and he knew the first hunter and was there to get revenge for him, and he's like, yeah, he had a ally here that was helping him, and they also learned that his silver stake had come in a leather case, and that the leather case is missing. So Aya declares she solved the crime. They go back, and they confront the family, and she points out that the silver stake couldn't have been the murder weapon because of the timing, and that it actually was holy water frozen in ice. It was an ice pick, guys. Have you ever heard that old mystery? It was ice. The ultimate murder weapon is an icicle because it always disappears.
That's a Poirot ice bullet. And then there's also Murder, She Wrote, Ice Knife, I think.
Yeah.
That is definitely a great homage to all the old whodunits, to have that as your first mystery.
And the killer was Raul, who did have a burnt hand, but because vampires can super regenerate, just cut his hand off. They don't regenerate when they touch silver, so he had to cut his whole hand off, or whatever was burnt, and regrow them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Raul attacks them, basically confirming that she's right. She's like, "Hey, I'm still revealing the evidence here. Why are you ruining the game?" Suguru throws him outside, and then they have the big fight. And this is like the first time we get to see Suguru really throw down, and he's like doing his showmanship, like presenting, and beats Raul down and kills him.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Aya is still like going over a couple less clues. Like, no, it definitely was him. Here's how he did it. Here's why he did it. He's saying stuff like, vampires aren't supposed to be in families. We're supposed to be wild and crazy, and I don't need a family. So, kid.
Also, like integration with humans is ridiculous.
Yeah,
they're so weak.
Yeah,
and like right before he kills him. The conclusion the kid has come to is, I just have to kill my entire family. And I'm like, okay, I understand why, what's his name?
Suguru.
Yes, I understand why he did it now, why he just executed him. But it was kind of a shocker for me at first, because I was like, did he really just, he did. He did, because later he confirms it. He's like, "Oh, it was a tragic day. You thought you just lost a wife, but you also lost a son." And I'm like, Well, that's kind of cold. That's a cold way to put it. but okay, that confirms it.
While they're leaving, they're Annie comes up and asks them for questions, and then Aya asked Lord Goddard if he's seen an old man with the cane for Nam. He's like, yeah, actually, he was here not too long ago. The professor, and he had visited recently. So they do leave, and then we see this professor who reads a newspaper article that the gentleman thief Lupin has stolen the Phantom of the Opera. Guys, when I say you check all my boxes, if you have Professor Moriarty reading a newspaper article about Lupin stealing the Phantom of the Opera, you're hitting a lot of Troy boxes. So, like, I know all those things. That's so cool.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never heard about Lupin before. Can you give a TLDR?
Yes, but I do gotta admit, I mostly know him from Lupin the Third, which is the whole point of Lupin the Third is he says he's a descendant of the French thief Lupin, even though he's not.
Oh, okay. So famous French thief.
But any gentleman thief, I think Lupin is the blueprint, the original, the OG. So that whole idea of I'm gonna send you a letter of how of what I'm gonna steal and when I'm gonna steal it, and I'm still gonna do it. But from what I was reading, it sounds like most of Lupin's stories. He's very similar to like Sherlock Holmes, but he was in France. And he was now a detective in the stories, that he was a former thief who had become a detective to help. That's what I got from Google. Again, my connection with him more is from anime itself, Lupin the Third.
There's also, I know that there's a point where he has a run-in with Sherlock, and the two are like, Lupin is a thief at that point, and Sherlock is investigating him. I'm pretty sure. It's a crossover.
Is that back in their original days? Like the original writers met up and oh, that's so cool. That's like the first shared universe, guys.
Yeah.
All right, so
SCU.
this is gonna date me, but
yeah, Sherlock Extended Universe.
Does anyone remember the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
I remember.
Oh heck yeah!
The 90s movie with Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Look. One thing I loved, and that's not a good movie. I love it, but it's not a good movie, is that when you take literary characters and you say this is actually all a shared universe, Jekyll and Hyde are in the same place as Alan Quarterman and Dracula.
And Jack the Ripper.
Yeah. Well, Jack the Ripper is not literary. He was real, or at least urban legend.
Well, 1800s, same time frame as with these characters.
But yes, you jam all that together and you say shared universe. That's I'm there. That's so cool to me. League of Shared Gentlemen was a good comic. But
it was 1908. It was published and it was called Arsène Lupin versus Sherlock Holmes.
So did they both write it?
Let's see. Written by Maurice LeBlanc. The creator of Arsène Lupin.
So Lupin got to bring Sherlock Holmes into his story. That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I want to read that so bad right now. Okay.
Oh, it's not Sherlock. It's Herlock Sholmes.
Ah. Not true. Not true. Shared universe.
Oh,
couldn't get the rights in France. Should have had
amazing.
Kevin Feige on it. He would have set it up.
Oh.
Okay.
Herlock. Wow, that's funny.
So we start our next episode with a man named Eric with a burnt side of his face who used to live in an opera. It's the Phantom, but his name is Eric, which I don't really like. I prefer to call him Phantom, but Eric, why are you running away?
Well, he doesn't like it either. Every time somebody says Eric, he says, "Don't use my name. I am the Phantom."
So we meet Eric, and he has been kidnapped by Lupin.
Sorry.
Your guys' thought, and there's a bunch of combo characters, so I'm doing them together. Your guys' thoughts on the Gentleman Thief, Lupin, and Eric in this anime?
They were all right. I thought they were written well, but they ended up feeling more like devices to get to the mystery than they were fleshed out characters. I think Lupin was more fleshed out than Eric, but it felt very much like more gimmicky than other characters within the anime.
Yeah, I mean, I actually agree with you, especially in regards to the Phantom of the Opera, because while he was present, he really didn't contribute much except for like one fight scene, and even then, it was just the gimmick of, "Oh, I'm super quiet. I know how
Or
sound works
loud.
because I'm the
Yeah.
Phantom." Yeah, exactly. Whatever I need to be. But that was kind of the extent of what he brought to it. Lupin I was fine with. Um, as far as what he brought to the story, I enjoyed him as a character. I thought he was funny. He did a good job playing Sherlock Holmes a bit, which I don't know if I agree with the storytelling that Sherlock would have been tricked by that. I don't know. I kind of think Sherlock would have been like so many steps ahead, checking so many eventualities that he wouldn't have been tricked by just that little faux pas of like, oh, the mask is easy to take off, and you know, he couldn't possibly come through the water. I don't know. Those just seem like things Sherlock would have considered as possibilities. So kind of felt like Lupin had some plot armor, so to speak, when it comes to his ability to create scenarios Sherlock couldn't predict. But and you even see a little bit of that in universe as like when he pulls out his pretty marbles and starts marble skating around, like punches Tsuguru, and Tsuguru gets KO'd. And then later you find out that that was just a ploy to, make Lupin think less of them. So, okay. So even the main characters are clearly giving Lupin a handicap to try and, throw him off his game. So, I don't know. I still liked him. I still found him enjoyable. I especially loved the aerial combat scene. I laughed so hard. I had to rewind and watch it a couple times, and I made Tanya come over, and I was like, look what they're doing with physics. Look at this. This is amazing. And, I mean, excuse me, there's 3 guys falling. Each of them is falling straight down. And then one of them just decides to cut over to the right. And then one of them like dodges, does a spin kick, hits the other one. And then he's like just hovering there, continuing his descent straight down. And then he just decides to point his sword down into to the left side of the screen at an angle. And he just accelerates all of a sudden towards his sword. And these guys don't have flying power. They don't have ki. Like there's no established legitimate reason why they can control themselves in the air like this.
Jetpacks.
You're gonna kill him.
Basically.
You're gonna kill him.
I know. I'm popping cough drops to try and keep it down, but anyways, so Lupin's pretty entertaining.
I loved him. I love a good heist movie as much as anyone, and Lupin being like I said, the OG. I was super excited he was here. I was super excited for here's this super elaborate thing that no one can steal. Like, oh, he's gonna get it though. He's totally gonna get it. I love the bravado of showing up in Sherlock Holmes dressed as Sherlock Holmes, and just how ballsy that has to be. He was fun. I do wish we had more of Phantom of the Opera. I felt like he was just random assistant. You just needed a second guy. It could have been anyone. And I mean, this is the Phantom of the Opera. Let's. His fight scene was cool. I was like, yes. Oh, it's over.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So
I found that there were a lot of fights like that, especially like the last episode. The fight scenes I expected to last much longer were over like 2 hits, done.
I'll say one thing I love about this anime does is that it's never this team versus this team. It's like 3 teams at the same time, so alliances are constantly switching. And Lupin brings that. So I just hope they keep bringing him back.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's keep bringing him into the mix. I think it's weird to bring Sherlock against him, but that's fine.
It seems like they're foreshadowing that. I mean, even when they had them encounter each other in the alleyway, it was like Sherlock was gonna fight him, and it would have been interesting to see. I mean, I don't think there's a chance in London that he would possibly beat him, but it would have been interesting to see.
Okay, so they. So yeah, the Phantom's like, hey, you kidnapped me, so I guess I have to help you. They have sent a letter to Phineas Fogg. Anyone know where he's from?
Around the world in 80 days.
That is correct. I had to Google it though, so don't. I'm only pretending.
Oh, I thought it was from Phineas and Ferb.
No, that's a descendant, just like Lupin the Third.
Wait, is Phineas and Ferb named after Phineas Fogg?
I have no idea.
There's
I don't know.
that's like 80% chance that's real.
I know, right?
All right.
I wonder if there's a film theory on it.
Matt, this was your chance to say something nasty.
I was about
I
to. I was
know,
trying to
that's-
think of something.
Here we are.
Delivered, sir.
Matt Pat put out. I haven't got to see it. Matt Pat put out a video about why everyone hates his theories.
It was great. It was great.
Really good.
Did we get a
Yeah.
shout out in it? Were we? Was it about? I assume specifically that was addressing us.
Nowhere in there.
Oh, it's not there yet. Okay. Matt Pat's theories
Just
suck. All right.
looking for the Matt Pat hit piece, are you?
Guys, you don't get famous without a beef. You know that.
Yes.
This is true.
And I respect all the other anime podcasters, so I don't want to beef with them. I want to beef with someone outside of our range.
He had a really good episode where he tried out different hamburger compositions. Like,
No, he didn't. No, he didn't, Jeremy. That was a really bad episode. He's terrible at grilling burgers. Have you seen his burgers? They are
Yeah,
gray
I mean,
and
They were
slimy.
pretty bad.
Okay,
It looked
the
terrible.
burgers didn't look good, but I did like the like science of how the flavor changed. Because I mean, that would be a constant in the whole thing, is that the burger was always cooked badly.
You got
So
to
that-
give him a little leeway because he was a brand new dad trying.
Yeah, no.
Getting into the
my
dad grilling thing, right?
my burgers for like the first 10 years of making them were terrible. Like I look back at them, like, what was I doing? Smash them, Matt Pat, smash them away.
Welcome to the Matt Pat Fan Podcast.
Yeah, we are so off topic. What was the mystery? Oh,
Wait, talking about anime?
right. On the way. Okay, so while in London, Aya and her crew has to stop at a walking stick store, and they steal the customer list because they're trying to find Moriarty. And when they leave, they get busted by this strange, super observant man and his portly friend. And they all get arrested. And this man, and also two twin criminals are also there. Who are probably from something, but I don't know.
I didn't recognize them.
Ocean's 11.
Ira introduces herself, and this man introduces himself. He is none other than Sherlock Holmes. And there's a great scene because Aya's like talking to these twin robbers. She's like, "You guys just stole something. You can see the red indents on your fingers that you were carrying a heavy bag." And Holmes is like, "Well, they stole clay pottery." She's like, "Well, how can you tell?" She's like, "You can see what's underneath their fingernails." She's like, "That could be glass. Now you don't put heavy glass into a bag." She's like, "Oh, you're right." So he is just slightly more observant than her. I love that they don't like, she's just as good as Sherlock Holmes. He definitely has his skill set above her, even though she can see his rationale. I love this meeting. This meeting was so good. Your guys' thoughts on Sherlock Holmes and Watson?
I thought it was okay, but it kind of got a little too far away from the whodunit after the meeting with Lupin. When Lupin comes in as Sherlock Holmes, they find out that, like, after that moment, they kind of lost their charm because they stopped doing the whodunit, and it was more reactionary about.
Yeah, this isn't a whodunit. This is a heist.
This is
Right,
how
but-
they do it.
but it was a discovery of how is he going to do it? How can we block him? There was that mystery of how do we protect this diamond from him? And it kind of lost that flair or that charm after that meeting. But I thought they were fine. Like, they were okay. But I mean, the anime obviously wasn't focused on those two.
I liked him. I always like to see Sherlock Holmes when he's done well. And I thought he was done pretty well here, even though I do think he would probably be more deductive than he really was in this. Yeah, I don't understand why he allowed so many people in there after closing the door. Like, just kick everybody out except for like 4 people. But anyways, I enjoyed the back and forth between him and Aya. Yeah, there you go. Aya. Brought up the names. I enjoyed the back and forth between the two of them. I just want to call her Head and Cage Girl. Like,
I thought her name was Anna for like half the anime, so all my notes say Anna. That the notes.
Awesome.
Yep. And I don't know. I just I don't know. I'm a little torn on him. I would like to see more, I guess. Felt like he was trying to be Sherlock Holmes and not quite there, but still interesting.
It's tough because Sherlock Holmes and Superman are the same. They are as powerful as they need to be for that story. And so if, hey, I need this bad guy to be able to survive them, they suddenly get a lot weaker, right? So Lupin has to look smart and be able to pull off his crime. So Sherlock has to not be as deductive as he usually is. Because I agree. The whole jamming, the whole, hey, I'm going to use a lock. And Sherlock being like, well, he clearly is going to use a lock. And I feel like Sherlock would have been like, yeah, the lock thing means something else.
Mm-hmm.
That said, there is a major missed moment here, and that's for Sherlock to power up and have a battle superpower. he mentions he has a martial arts, which does win, and he does win his battle. But there's a little bit of a power battler anime in this, especially at the end of this arc. And I needed Sherlock to, dig down, hair change a different color. I need that in my life.
Super Sherlock.
Electricity flowing all over.
What I was thinking, though, is it's weird to have Sherlock against Lupin because Sherlock is a guy who comes in and solves something after it's been done. He puts the pieces back together, whereas with Lupin, he's having to predict and instead of react, where Sherlock is deductive. Here's what happened. I can look at the clues and figure out what happened. And now he's having to, okay, out of all these things, what did Lupin figure out? I think that would be harder for him because he's usually solving the crime, not stopping a heist.
Did you just describe Captain Hindsight?
I mean, isn't that what all detectives are?
I guess so.
Basically.
But yeah, that's his role. So that's why I felt a little weird to bring in Sherlock when there's 2 whodunits on both sides of his storyline, but he's not in one. He's in a heist story, which is not his forte.
Mm-hmm.
But I still agree, Jeremy, that there's the lock thing he should have picked up on for classic Sherlock. And if this was Sherlock's story, I 100% believe he would have. But because it's not his story, he has to be dumbed down a little more than we're used to. Much like you have to lower Superman's power level when it's a Batman story. Otherwise, every story is better with Sherlock, anime included. Believe that wholeheartedly. They get taken to the mansion instead of jail once they reveal that they're the famous detectives that have been hired. And they go to Fogg's mansion. They learn the Royce group is also coming. I couldn't find any information on a Royce group in literary. In this anime, they are insurance people who actually are monster hunters. They hate monsters. They want to kill monsters, but they do it in the name of protecting the insured's property. Mm-hmm. And they show up in all white outfits, and they all have wacky crazy weapons and wacky crazy personalities. They're just there to be the third enemy. I like them, but I would have liked to have more why they matter, why they get to keep showing up, why do they have so much authority to just start murdering people wherever they want. And like I said, I thought there must be a literary reference here that I'm not getting, and I couldn't find it. So
yeah, me neither. And this is another situation where you have humans that are more capable than monsters, and that in a lot of anime that's fine, but in this anime that just kind of seems strange because there's a delineation between humans and monsters, and that power gap just kind of is implied. So when a human is able to do as well or better than monsters, to the point where we see several monsters dying to just a single attack from some of these humans later, and I'm like, are they also monsters? Like, where are they getting their power? And I especially wonder that about Sherlock, with his eyes the way they are, and how they react when the Royce insurance agents are coming. His brother Mycroft tells him, and he's like, yeah, they're going to be a problem because they're going to try to kill monsters. And then there's like this knowing look. And I'm like, is Sherlock a monster?
See, that I want that. I want that so much. I want Sherlock to transform and to rip someone apart. His whole like, oh, I'm gonna have to use this, and then he just hits a guy with a stick, and I'm like,
maybe his monster power is his deductive reasoning.
What kind of monster is that, I wonder?
A smart one.
A smart monster.
Oh, you know what
Whatever that's called.
I've had a thought in my brain since I started watching this, and we totally missed it when we were talking about Suguru. Suguru is a brat. He's a huge brat. He's always making silly jokes, and it reminds me of someone I know.
Oh yes,
it's you. No, it's you, Jeremy.
What?
Yeah, the way the whole I'm gonna stick out my tongue and it. Guys, Jeremy, you know him as a super nice guy, and he is. But you've never had to dungeon master for him. He is a brat.
Yeah.
If Suguru is every character Jeremy's ever played in a role-playing game. He will kidnap all your NPCs. He will stick out his tongue and be silly. Fun. Yeah. Watching Suguru was bringing me flashbacks of old role-playing sessions. So
That's funny.
I needed to call that out. I had meant to earlier. I'm sorry. All right, we will get back on track here. Royce group shows up, and they're all taken down to see what Lupin is there to steal. They get taken into this giant chamber below ground, and then there is a silver safe that's about red box size, and they open it up, and there's a black diamond in it, and it's not even it's an artificial diamond, and there's writing inside it it's a poem about werewolves. And then I was like, oh my god, they're going to make Lupin a werewolf. I love this anime so much. And then they didn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, the connection is just, it's on the table, and they just left it on the table.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
His name is Lupin. You just add an E, be like, I was actually born Lupine.
Right?
And then,
the last werewolf.
And then he needs the diamond because he's a werewolf, and that's how he commits his super awesome crimes, because he has werewolf powers. It's right there.
Yep.
In a past life, they called me Lycan. It's just that's right there.
Yep.
After viewing the diamond, both Aya and Sherlock come up with their own plans to stop the theft. And then we see Suguru going for lunch. They're all sitting on a park bench, and he sees fish and chips, and so he goes to get some, which is really important because there's a bird cage on the bench next to them with a parrot.
It looks exactly the same, down to the curtain that hangs over it.
Yep, and the owner of the bird is also getting fish and chips. And Shizuku's sent to do something. Laundry or something.
No, she got up and walked over to get fish and chips too or something. Like, she wasn't even sent. She deliberately walked away for something, and that's why she was so upset with herself later, because she was like, I'll never leave you again, master.
So then
You'll be abducted.
We get the scene that we've all been alluding to. Watson comes home and starts talking to Holmes, and Holmes is like, I think the theft is going to go great now. He's like, wait, you weren't very sure? And then Mycroft walks in. How do you guys feel when Mycroft isn't fat?
I know, I was thinking it too. They did not do a good enough job.
It's kind of normal now because of the BBC Sherlock made him super skinny, and they make jokes about him being fat formerly. So it's not, but Mycroft's supposed to be huge because he doesn't move. He just eats and thinks. Anyway.
Yeah.
Mycroft walks in. He's like, hey, where's Sherlock? He's like, I'm Sherlock. He's like, no, Sherlock cut his nails 3 days ago, and yours are too long. And he's like, actually, I'm Lupin. And Sherlock walks in. He's like, yeah, I knew the whole time. And then Lupin escapes. because the Phantom was driving by and he jumps into his car. After making the whole thing about I love locks. Locks are meant to be open. It's gonna be a lock thing. Sure, Locke buys into that.
Sherlock. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Shizuku is searching for Aya because they realize the birdcage is missing, and she almost gets run over by Lupin and Eric. So they offer to help her. They pick her up and they go driving around. Aya, the bird owner, sees her and throws her into the street, and then those twin criminals see her and run over her head, which
Cutting it in
Splitting
half.
her skull in two.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She straight up murdered, but she's immortal, so she just reforms, and then they grab her to abduct her. And then it becomes this big chase between Lupin and these criminals, and then Suguru sees them, so he goes running off, and he manages to save her. And then she realizes, hey, this random guy who helped us is dressed exactly like Sherlock, so of course that's got to be Lupin, and Suguru fights him and loses to one punch.
Uh-huh.
And Lupin does use marbles.
Yes.
Not even magic marbles, just marbles.
Regular marbles. Yep.
And he hits him so hard that the marbles crush in his hand. And just like sand comes out. Not sand and blood because he's a human and that would rip up the entire inside of his hand.
No,
Exactly.
you're right. I'm never gonna hold this anime up as realistic. Okay, it's fun. It's pulpy, silly fun.
I just want to know,
Unless
like,
he is a
what are-
werewolf. Like,
It would be great if he was. I just want to know, like, what are the rules? Like, tell me what the rules are. What can humans do? What's the difference between a human and a monster if a human can keep up with and fight better than a monster? Like,
I mean,
well,
technically the humans are winning, so they've gotten pretty good at beating monsters.
and,
I would think that's
the
attrition.
humans have
but maybe
humans
not.
have feelings though, and like if their feelings
Seems like monsters do too.
outpower the monster's power.
No.
You're just poking the bear, man. You know you're doing it on purpose.
No.
Oh yeah, totally.
One important thing in this
Smash
scene:
the feelings.
Annie is here. She was traveling with Suguru. Annie is
Oh, yeah.
on the scene, and that's important for later. All right, so
Is
it's
it?
the day of the heist, and the French inspector, the Gainard, is the guy who chases Lupin around. He shows up, but Holmes pulls on his mustache to make sure it's not Lupin, and he says, "Okay." They all go down. Aya's like, "My group is gonna go high. We're gonna guard the very top of the building." And the Royce group goes to the ground floor, so Sherlock closes the rest of them in the basement, in that the giant room. The only way in besides the main door is a vent in the ceiling that's really high up and too small for someone to crawl through. And then they hear a commotion outside. There's someone jumps into the moat. We see someone has snuck in the guard uniform. It's Eric. And then an explosion goes off and fills up this underground room with water. And they do point out it's the French inspector. Lupin never kills. Don't worry, we won't die.
I didn't remember that it was him. That's
Yeah.
good.
So the room fills up with water. So they get one of the Royce members to come down and blow up the wall so that it'll empty out. And when it does, it is now 11:30. And the safe is missing, and they figure out a rope has come down the vent and was tied to the safe and pulled back up. But that means someone in the room had to have helped, and so Sherlock arrests the French inspector, realizing that Lupin coming to his house in disguise was just to make him think his disguises were easy to take off, and that if he pulled on the mustache it would come off, but it wasn't. It was actually Lupin as the French inspector the whole time. And then. So Lupin's thing is, okay, but who won? Because I stole the diamond, but you've caught me. And Sherlock goes, you haven't stolen anything. I have the diamond in Watson's pocket. And Lupin's like, you mean this diamond? YOLO. And he bounces. That was dumb as shit.
Yeah.
But a good moment for Lupin. I like that one. And then he meets up with Eric, and who has the safe. And they open up the safe. It springs open, and Aya comes flying out. She's been hiding in the safe the whole time, and she screams out for Suguru, who jumps down to catch them in the act. That was their plan. They're like, we're not gonna be able to stop them, so I'll just stay in the safe, and when they open it, I'll tell you where they are. And Suguru does this whole story about catching thieves who were stealing pots.
Yeah.
He talks a lot.
Story.
It's hard to write notes. It is a good story, but
Yeah.
it's hard to take notes about it. When there's a lot happening, and he's just rambling on forever.
Yeah. So she was basically just a glorified safe alarm. Like that's all she was. Suguru, hurry,
Yep.
hurry, they're here.
Okay, so Eric runs away, and Shizuku goes after him.
I love
What-
that Lupin turns bright red. He's like, God dang it, Phantom.
Suguru gets ready to fight Lupin for the diamond, but the Royce member shows up, and they have this big three-way battle for it. I love Lupin's thing of like throwing it up and onto the roof outside, and then running outside to catch it when it comes back down, and him laughing gleefully as he's getting away, how much he's loving the chase. While
And then Suguru's laughing too.
yeah, Suguru's loving it. The Royce agent, not so much. He's very offended by all this. He also seems to be like a germaphobe, so he's having a lot of issues with this. And then we get the big them flying through the air scene. Also, yeah, Jeremy's talked about it. You know, the bridge to the mansion suddenly blows up, and the professor's group has arrived. So we get a bunch of other characters. We find out they're known as Banquet. We not only have Moriarty himself, we have Victor, he's Frankenstein.
Yep.
We have Carmilla, who's another vampire who also has aphrodisiac powers. We have Crowley. Man, I had to look this one up because Crowley is not a literature character. I know the name a lot. There's a lot of demons in fiction named Crowley, but that is not who they're referring to. There was a guy named Crowley who was super into magic and the occult, and that's who this is. And then we also have the guy who looks like the red version of Suguru, and his name is Jack. And if you're in Victorian London and your name is Jack in a story, you're just like an M. There's only one person you're going to be. It's Jack the Ripper.
You were on a Titanic.
Oh my God, was he Jack the Ripper the whole time? Is that how the murder stopped?
That's why they stopped.
Rose was going to be his victim, and then she froze him to death. That movie just got a whole new spin.
Wow, she's a hero.
It's a horror movie now. She's Final Girl. All right. Thoughts on the members of Banquet?
I want to see more of them because we don't get a ton of time. I think the most we do is with the magician, Carmilla, and Victor. But I would love to get more time with Victor because there's obviously a relationship between him and Suguru. And so and their banter is fantastic because you would think, oh, here comes to blows. You know, we've got the tough Oni fighter, and then we've got huge big. No, that's not how it goes. So, it's a great subversion of expectations with that. And then I like the magician just because he was suave, but Carmilla was okay. She served her purpose.
What was her purpose?
To be the alluring bad guy that sucks your blood. So
she is pretty attractive for a psycho evil woman.
Yeah, when she came on the screen the first time, I was like, Tanya, look. She goes, oh, okay, you're gonna enjoy this anime. So yeah, Banquet's all right. They're interesting. I especially love that the introduction shows their power level is just way above, at least for most of them, way above what we've been dealing with so far. Especially Jack. When Jack shows up, like some things happen I did not expect to happen.
The ripping.
Things get brutal.
He straight up rips.
Yeah. And I also really like the backstory and the banter between Jack and Suguru. It's pretty funny, and it's it also shows the difference between somebody who has been given great power versus somebody who earned it. And I mean, granted, they both were infused, right? So in a way, they were both given power, but Suguru has had to endure so much more for that power and never wanted it in the first place. And it gives him a real leg up against Jack that ordinarily, you know, if they both came from the same situation, there's no way Suguru would even survive a moment, much less outwit him. So that's pretty cool. I also loved Victor. Victor Frankenstein was awesome. Exactly everything you said, Jason. Love that guy. It was funny to find out that Aleister Crowley was just a fraud.
Yeah.
I laughed at that a lot.
I think that's my favorite thing about him is that he's just a big phony who's flicking needles at people.
Yeah, he's like just snap, snap, snap. But I thought it was really funny though when Sherlock explained how that worked and was like, "Yes, your thumbs operate at twice the speed of a normal person." I'm like, how does that work? Like your thumbs are twice as. Is anything else twice as fast or just your thumbs? How did that happen?
That's super good thumbs. Well, he's a magician. That's probably true
Super
for
thumb.
most magicians, right? That their
Well,
thumbs
I imagine
work
it's
way
all their
faster.
fingers.
That's
You know,
true.
not just their
Their whole
thumbs.
hand.
Yeah.
But it's not it's not necessarily speed. It's muscle control. It's
Sure.
being able to do certain articulations and hold
Mhm.
certain poses with it looking natural. So I
I
guess
I could get it,
some
but
explanation for that. But still, just the thumb. That just seems like unnecessarily restrictive.
So I agree about like Crowley. The fact that he's a phony was my favorite thing about him. Carmilla was fan service in evil form. That's fine. Victor being like an honorable guy was awesome, and I can't wait to know about him. And about Jack, there's an old Seinfeld joke where he talks about maximum strength Tylenol. He's like, "How did they figure out maximum strength Tylenol? Give me what will kill me. Back it off just a little bit." That reminds me of the difference between Suguru and Jack, though, because Suguru is that test of how far can I go. Okay, that's too far. A little bit less is in Jack. So Suguru has more monster in him because he has to have the treatment from Aya to survive, or eventually he'll go crazy. Whereas Jack is less dosage and controllable dosage. So I find that interesting. I wonder if that'll make Suguru stronger in the end.
I was about to say, because they implied in this that Jack was stronger than Suguru.
But I think that
he
was
has a lot
his
more
chimera nature.
Yeah, he has vampire. He has immortal in him.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting. Also, super interesting that
Not
Moriarty
as
is
smart though.
post Rorschach Falls. I thought that was interesting that they mentioned the Rorschach Falls has already happened when Moriarty and Sherlock tumbled to their death together off the falls.
Mm-hmm. And apparently neither one died.
And yeah, they both were just fine. Which, hey, spoilers for Moriarty the Patriot. Same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Apparently easy to fall off waterfalls, guys. Not a good way to die.
Don't hang around him too much.
Don't go chasing them. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
Oh.
90s reference.
Yeah.
All right. Fighting. Where were we? Does anyone remember?
Banquet had just shown up.
Banquet just showed up. All right. Yeah. So, I'm gonna skip over some stuff to get who's fighting who. Sherlock and Watson have taken Aya with them, and they end up fighting Crowley together. Where she's just asking him questions, which is, I was like, it's weird. She's just fine sitting there. I'm like, but what is he gonna do to her? Like, she's in no danger ever. There's no Oni around, so she's fine. And so yeah, Sherlock battles them. They use all their guns. It doesn't matter. And Sherlock's like, I'm gonna have to use my martial arts, which again is just hitting him with a stick so that the poison needle goes back at him. Really disappointed. Shizuku saves Inspector Lestrade from Carmilla and they have a fun fight, which reveals some fun things about Shizuku, and made the OP better, if you ask me. The one of the Royce agents fights Eric, and he beats her with sound, and they all end up together in this church where Suguru and Lupin have teamed up against the Royce agent, which is Lupin just hiding up at the top and pushing an organ on top of him.
I love this monologue from Suguru to distract him. It's so great.
But then, Eric and the other girl show up, and then Jack shows up, and he literally like slashes and rips the girl Royce agent in 3 parts. Like, she dead.
Yep.
Lupin's like, we'll be leaving. And Phantom's like, what about the diamond? No, it don't matter no more. Read the room.
Yeah.
We're leaving. So Suguru takes on this guy, uses the poor dead girl's heart as a weapon against him, picks it up and hits him. So good. But Suguru loses badly. And during this time, Moriarty's having this big rant about, he's my apprentice. He was famous for those Whitechapel murders, the perfect crimes. I've taken him on, and I'm turning him into this giant chimera. And the only thing we need left is we need to add werewolf into him. So they want the diamond for the werewolf. And Jack looks at the diamond, and then Suguru attacks it. That's when he attacks him with the heart. And then he's like, Suguru's like, you gonna finish me off? He's like, you're not even worth it. And he walks away. He sends up a flare, and all of Banquet leaves. And then the heroes all gather back together. And Jack, with Banquet, goes to give them the diamond, and he realizes there's a hole in his pocket because Suguru wasn't trying to win the fight. He was trying to get the diamond back, and he did. And he held it this whole time. He waited till they brought it up because he knows how to entertain.
Yep.
Oh, and then they crack the code, and they're like, oh, the werewolves are in the Forest of Fangs.
God. This came across so bad to me when I heard this, because I was like, oh, so you know what the Forest of Fangs is, and nobody thought to look for werewolves in the Forest of Fangs.
Like I said it in a comment. They should have been like, where's the werewolves? Werewolf Town. No way.
Yeah, exactly.
They do reveal no one actually knows where the Forest of Fangs are, but everyone's reaction in the scene is like, oh yeah, that's super popular place. We all know about it. Mm-hmm. We should go there.
Yeah. It was named ironically.
Yeah. Then that ends that storyline, and we go to the next one, which is the last murder mystery. It starts with a flashback to 8 years ago where a werewolf is running with her daughter on her back. They're being chased by humans. They're chased up into a tower, and they are burned alive by the humans. It sets up this whole thing. And then we see Suguru and Aya and Shizuku marching through the mountains of
Wolfvania.
Sweden?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where we are in Europe.
It sounds like Germany. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Germany.
They come across a man needing help, and he is a doctor in a human village. And they've been having girls murdered by wolves lately, and a girl who the town all loves this girl. She has just been kidnapped by a wolf, and they're like, we need help. So they take her to this town, and the town is like bursting at the seams, like they're ready to kill each other. I was there like, oh, they're good. They're playing One Night Ultimate Werewolf. they kind of are. They're basically anyone who's an outsider in this village, and they find out there's 3. They're worried could be a werewolf. They're like, you're the werewolf. No, you're the werewolf. They're all ready to shoot each other. And then Aya comes in and they see her as just a head in a cage. And they're like, okay, we're gonna shoot her. That's clearly not okay. And she's like, no, I'll solve your crime for you. So
I love how, because of who she is, neither Suzu is a bit perturbed, like, hey, don't hurt her, but like Suguru is like, yeah, go ahead and shoot her. It's not gonna do anything.
Yeah, she's just like grabbing her gun, and Siguru's like, hey, you want to see? She also warns them. She's like, you don't want to see me. They're like, we want to see you. We'll be fine. She's taken to the scene of the crime, which is the little girl's room. There is blood on the bed. The window has been smashed out, and there's wolf paw prints coming from the fireplace. And they do an experiment where they drop Suguru's pillow through the chimney. Shizuku was just told to drop something, and she
like a ball, right? And so she's like, "Oh, Suguru's pillow, perfect."
Right into the soot. And Aya's really, she's like, none of this makes sense. This room really is the key to the mystery. But she continues to investigate. Then we go and talk to the mayor, and they ask him about the village of werewolves, and he's like, yeah, we have a general idea of where it was. We know it's down under the waterfall. There's a waterfall here too. And we know it's down there, but I'm not telling you the more specific location, how to use the gem to find it. And she's like, well, what if I solve this crime? Well, you tell me then. He's like, okay. So he says, go talk to the 3 outsiders. So they talk to the first one. His name is Knut. Don't spell that wrong. Whatever. And he had been the one who took in a pregnant woman they had found in the woods, and she stayed with him for a while and raised her daughter, and then she had ended up being the werewolf from the beginning 8 years ago. So they had run her out and burned her alive and her daughter. He is the man who had found them. So he tells that whole story of how they raised him. And the little girl that's missing now is the one that exposed the werewolves, because the werewolf mom had mixed up the 2 girls because they look very similar, and gone to the little girl in the wheelchair is the one who's been kidnapped, and said, hey, make sure you hide your ears. Don't forget to hide your ears. And that's how she had figured this out. So she had exposed them, and all that stuff 8 years ago. Then they go talk to...
Also, just because this bugged the heck out of me, and I had to think about it for a minute to realize, oh, okay, it's the flowers. How would a werewolf mother who's supposed to have heightened senses not recognize the smell of her own daughter?
Oh, that's right, because she was in the field of flowers.
She was in the field of flowers, so the flowers were masking her scent.
Okay, then they talk to the artist lady, and she's done a picture of all the girls that have died, and has one of Louise, who's the girl who's gone missing. And they catch her in a lie that she's not from a art trained family, and she also mentions she sees a golden wolf some mornings. And then they leave her and they talk to the doctor again. Oh, and then 2 Royce agents arrive. And the Royce agents are ready to start killing them. And Aya's like, how about we have a truce? And we work together to catch the werewolf killers. And they're like, what werewolf killers? And I'm like, oh, yeah, there's a werewolf killer. And then the artist girl goes crazy. And we see her through her door screaming about how she couldn't help the hunger. And she ate Louise. And she transforms into a werewolf and bursts out. And they have this big battle with her. Suguru has to fight her and Shizuku helps. But Aya gets knocked out aside, and when Shizuku jumps to save her, she ends up falling down the waterfall. Okay.
Another thing that bugged me, because in a lot of battle anime, you'll have the character who's got the strings, right? Like they send out a bunch, and then they control them, and they can slice people up with them. Mm-hmm. Well, this person's one of the Royce agents, similar to that, but with chains. And I'm thinking. So, with the strings, it makes sense because, you could have a couple rolls, like they did it really good in comic Got Kill. like rolls a string on you, right? But like
Chains are heavy.
the amount of steel this person carried around.
Are they silver? Are they silver chains?
I don't know.
Imply, and they didn't burn any monster yet.
That's a good point.
Yes,
So they're
that's true.
probably steel.
Okay.
Even if it was silver, the amount of weight.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Okay,
Plus,
then we
that person got called a motor, I think, by Victor. And so I was like, okay, so is that a battle type, or does this character actually have like a motor and is pulling the chains with the motor? Is that what's happening? I don't know. It's super confusing.
I agree. The Royce members are they feel so random, and they're like, they like demand that they're important to the scene, and I'm like, I feel like you're just cannon fodder for the other cooler characters.
Well, and then like when they first introduce them, you hear the spurs like chinking on the ground as they step.
I do love Alice.
And I'm like, are you kidding? They've got a cowboy one now, and she's got 2 revolvers,
and like the little vest.
I kind of love
ridiculous.
Alice. I love that she's the hot-tempered one, but also technically in charge. And so, like, Kyle's like, hey, we're going to make a deal with them. I didn't say we're making a deal with them. I'm going to shoot this guy. I liked her.
Nope.
We get another flashback, and this one is in a different village. And there's a woman. I thought it was a pyre. It's not technically a pyre. It's a bunch of wood logs holding up like a bowl. And she's up on it, and they're telling her it's clearly the pregnant woman from the werewolf that died 8 years ago. But she's pregnant, so this is before she went to the human village. And they're yelling at her about, like, you're a priestess, and you have to do all this stuff. And she doesn't. She's like, I didn't ask to be a priestess. I don't want to do this stuff. And so she comes tumbling down. And that's how she got hurt before she went to the human village. I skipped over the mayor talking about how cool the werewolf.
A werewolf fell and then didn't instantly regenerate.
Yeah. Or at least like fell and then took damage? Like these werewolves are made of glass.
I was about to say, did this werewolf fall on a silver spike that happened to be standing up? Right. How is she injured?
Are they regenerative? I don't remember ever seeing a werewolf regenerate.
We were just told that they're incredibly difficult to damage. Like, it requires things like silver.
Yeah, it requires silver to keep them
right. And they had 3 weaknesses: silver, fire, and long falls while in a bowl.
Oh, that was it. It makes sense now. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, there was a line, and this ends up being important, from the mayor about how the werewolves are very strict about controlling their bloodline because they are trying to breed the super werewolf.
Yeah.
A werewolf basically immune to all weaknesses. They've already bred out in the latest generation a weakness to silver, but they're still weak to fire, and so they're trying to get to that. And that is that's not just their goal, that's their religion. That they believe this god of werewolves will eventually come from their lineage.
And it's not like the mayor says the current generation, but really it seems like it's just Nora. It does not seem like anybody else is immune to anything, because like regular bullets, silver bullets, chains, everything works fine.
Suguru's fist, well, that would work, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's an anti-monster, yes.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to be part of something, and fine. Okay, then they're told about how to find the village, especially because they need to go find Shizuku. So they go to the burnt watchtower and look through the gem, and they get to see all the fangs in the sky, and there's all these mountains that look like fangs, and you can see the shadows from on the top of the gem, and it points to where the village is. So they figure out where the village is. Meanwhile, Shizuku wakes up naked. Surrounded by naked girls. It just keeps happening to her.
This is why Shizuku's here.
So they had found her in the river and were giving her body heat. One is a naked girl, one is a naked wolf, who then turns into a naked girl. And then they're like, hey, you have to go. Humans can't be here. And she's like, well, let me make you some tea. So that she makes them some really yummy tea. And so they all become friends.
She knows that they're supposed to be like. She's like, this is our destination. I'll just stay here and wait for Anya to come.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a mysterious blonde girl who looks very similar to other characters we've already seen, named Nora, who's kind of the leader of these nice werewolf girls that are helping Shizuku. And they come up with a plan to sneak her out of the village. But when they do the plan, she gets caught anyway.
This was really contrived. Like, I mean, it'd be one thing if the werewolf guys were like,
at the end.
huh?
They explain it at the end. Or Anya explains it at the end.
The wheel?
Yes.
Oh, I must have missed it.
It was part of Juliet's ploy.
This is a setup.
Or like, yeah, it was a setup.
Really, I missed that. Who set the wheel up to fall off?
Nora did.
Huh.
Or Jute. Yeah, Jute. Her real name's Jute.
I totally missed that line. Interesting.
Yeah.
And it's also because she was supposed to go tell them to go to the west side of the forest, and then they're just standing there in the middle of the town still. That's because she didn't. She wanted them to get caught.
Oh. Yet she also wanted her to escape because she made sure.
Yeah, she like later changed her mind, but she did want her to get caught. They do say that.
Huh. So she did want her to get caught, but she did. It doesn't seem right. Seems like maybe we're missing something.
All right. While they're climbing down the cliff, Aya and Suguru they're with the Royce agent. Victor suddenly attacks and carries them down the cliff. And he's like, hey, you look like you need to get away from those guys. How's it going? Can I know where the village is? And they're like, okay, you can hold on to the diamond. And they make a deal with him. The way they talk to him was like they have known him and come across him multiple times, but
and worked with him before.
Right, they seem to be on a very friendly basis, but I couldn't tell if this was just him being gentlemanly or if they actually were friends.
I'm wondering if when Suguru got injected with Oni, that he had a relationship with Victor at the time in Banquet. Or before, they weren't called Banquet at the time, but
right.
I'm wondering if like maybe Victor was like a guard for all the test subjects, and that they developed a relationship there.
Maybe. What confused me was why Aya seemed so comfortable with him. Like, she said, hi, Victor, or something like that. Like, she knew him on a first name basis immediately and was like, the rest of Banquet isn't here. So I was trying to figure out, like, how does Aya know him? Like, I thought maybe he was a previous servant of hers or something.
No, she knows him from the confrontation at the diamond heist. But like with all situations, it's not like she can do anything except exist. So,
or is in any danger.
Yeah, like, what danger can he put her in?
I guess so. It seemed like it was a longer history than that, though, to me.
Yeah, but the impression I got was like, I first thought, he's on their team. They have a
guy on the inside.
Yeah, but then they just seem cordial and like, maybe they know each other. But it's never fully explained. But I did like it, I guess.
Yeah,
I was like, this is cool.
I like that the question is there. Mm-hmm.
Right. Meanwhile, Shizuku is put on trial in the same tottering bowl, and the way this works, it's basically Jenga, and if you lie, they take out a block.
But they're like just deciding that you're lying too.
Right.
Like, they don't have a way to tell.
The lie detector is if the mayor
doesn't like you,
the old lady, old werewolf lady doesn't like your answer, then you lose a block. Mm-hmm. But while
I did want to say one other thing about the confrontation with Victor there. I don't really understand why they gave Banquet directions to the werewolves. Like, the whole point of them coming to the werewolf village was to stop Banquet from going to the werewolf village. They didn't have another reason to come here with this diamond. So why did they give Victor directions to it? I don't understand that decision.
I don't have an answer for you, but I honestly feel like when I watched it, I was like, that makes sense. But now that I think back
So-
on it, I don't have an explanation.
For me, it was kind of like this, right? Shizuku is missing,
Uh-huh.
and that's like top priority at this point. Second priority is getting to like solving this mystery, right? And getting to the werewolf village. Third, they already know where the werewolf village is. Victor doesn't. That means Victor has to take this diamond, go back to the top, figure out the puzzle, then know where to place it. And so that's buying them time that Banquet's not there at the village. And so I think in Suguru's mind, what?
You missed something. The diamond was only taken as collateral because he told him exactly where to go. Victor wasn't going back to test the diamond. He was simply taking it in case it was a lie.
Okay. I see. Well, in any case, Victor still had to go up and tell his buddies where it was so that they could go down to it.
He asked nicely, and this is the age of gentlemen.
But I think it was probably in my opinion, this is not really supported by facts. I think it was a calculated decision to not waste time in a battle with somebody that they were cordial with when they needed to get moving. And also put more space between them and the insurance agents.
It seemed like the insurance agents weren't really a threat, but I do see where you're coming from. They certainly are not, like, they don't care too much about the well-being of others. I'm noticing. Because, like, even just the fact that he dispatches 3 of the werewolf guards when there's really almost no reason to do that.
I was wondering, like, is this for something, or are you just taking out guys?
Yeah, it was so weird.
I think my assumption was that the alliances had to shift. It was, hey, these Royce guys are getting too close, so now we're going to give some information to Banquet to just kind of, we're going to shift our alliances over to Banquet and help them so that Royce is pushed back because they were getting close.
So weird.
Anyway.
No, it seems like they could have just, judging by Suguru's speed, I would assume that he could just carry that birdcage and disappear into the forest, not tell Victor where they're going. just go. Bouncing from treetop to treetop.
Manners maketh.
Also,
Monster Man.
if they do have a cordial relationship, or like they were friends, like keeping that give and take going can lead to further in the future give and takes. So, like, for instance, he tells them that, our place is in London, right? He says that later on because they have that relationship.
Right. Where their ultimate goal isn't to stop Moriarty, but just to get the body back. I don't really care what Moriarty does as long as they get.
I mean, there's 2 goals. One is to get the body back, and then the other is to get revenge for becoming an Oni. Half Oni.
Does he want revenge?
That's what he said. Yeah, when he initially signed up with her, he said, we'll go get your body back, and I want revenge.
Yeah, he did. You're right.
And then he brought that up a couple times during the show.
Okay. I skipped over something. I don't want to forget it. The reason Shizuku is on trial is because there's been murders happening at the exact same time the human girls have been murdered. So there's also werewolf girls being murdered at the exact same time. Okay. While she's up there, they hear a shotgun blast. So everybody, including Shizuku, is taken, and they find Nora is dead. She's been shot, shotgun, and Shizuku does her best Aya impression, reviewing the crime scene. And then she's taken and put in prison. And the werewolves are all confused because they're like, we can smell the killer, but it ends. It just.
Well, and also they immediately thought it was Shizuku because of her rifle, but she immediately points out that, look, this is a buckshot pattern. I have a single shot rifle.
And now, like, hey, we were literally surrounded her and this happened, so it couldn't be her. But they do still lock her up. Meanwhile, Aya and Suguru meet up with one of the werewolf girls, and they're taken to the village. They meet up with Shizuku, give her uniform minus panties, because Suguru forgot.
Sure he did.
And then they're taken to the crime scene, and the werewolves are coming to hunt them down because they can smell them, and they find a secret passage at the murder scene, and there is a secret tunnel between that murder scene and where the burnt tower is, and they travel through it, and they find a tunnel full of moths that get dust on you. They find the shotgun. They find the artist lady's body murdered, and then they find a place where someone was staying and scratching tally marks into the wall for days, but there's a blood stain on the ground, meaning that person has been killed. And they go back up to the human side, and the humans find Luis's body suddenly. And then Aya's like, okay, I solved it. So they go back to the werewolf village, but Royce leads the human villagers to attack the werewolf village, and there's this big war breaking out. Shizuku tries to save her werewolf friends, and they're being attacked by Carmilla. So Shizuku gets ready to fight her. Alice fights Crowley. Victor fights Kyle. And Suguru has to fight 3 werewolf guards. And the final episode starts with the opening music playing during all these fights, and it was very cool.
Yeah.
Always works on me.
Yeah, why didn't he just, like, I don't know, incapacitate them instead of just, like, outright killing all 3 of them?
He was, like, snapping necks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's what I was wondering. You know, at the first one where he like grabbed him by the leg and then slammed him down and there was like all this blood behind him, I was like, he's just knocked out, right? Like that blood's just for show. But then he snaps the neck of the next one and like shoves his whole arm down the throat of the third one. And I'm like, wait, that's that like white-haired guy that we've been watching this whole time.
Jeremy, they're fine. They went to a special farm up in the werewolf mountains.
That's what it is. Yeah. It was just so unnecessary.
Yeah, no, he lives in that farm now. It can't come back, and you can't visit the farm. But it's fine.
We'll send messages every now and then.
And this is very much an intentional mission he sent on.
Yeah.
And Aya and the red-haired werewolf girl go to Nora's grave, and they dig it up, and it's empty. So that was the final piece of the mystery. So then, now that the 3 guards are dead, and Suguru saves Victor, gets the diamond back, and is then told you, hey, we're based in London.
Did Subaru kill that Royce agent?
Sure looked like it.
Okay.
One hit.
He also took his chains.
And he took his chains. 1 hit kill. I was expecting, just the way this was all presented, I was expecting, at least an exchange of blows, maybe
and
a little bit of choreography.
Death Battle Rules means that Suguru is stronger than Victor because Victor was beat by the Royce agent.
That's right. Comparative rules. Yes. Anything Eric can do, Suguru can do better.
All right, let's bring this into. We're at the end, guys, but you just keep slowing down that train. I'm sure people are loving that.
Yep.
Just, I gotta poke the bear every once in a while.
We talk about Matt Pat some more. All right. Aya confronts both sides, or both villages. Now they're fighting. And says, hey, I know who the killer is. It's the same killer on both sides. And the killer is Jute, who is the daughter of the werewolf who was killed 8 years ago. And she's also Louise. And she's also Nora.
And she'll be a priestess as soon as she turns 13.
Yeah, she's not a priestess yet. The whole story is when her mom was killed, she was put into the secret tunnel. And her mom grabbed like a little fox that was hiding in the tower, and that got burned. So they did find like a small animal bones there. And then she went and lived in the werewolf village. And Aya's like, so she had came up with this revenge plot. She kidnapped Luis. This was a year and a half ago. Luis had disappeared for a small time.
And Luis wanted to be captured as well.
Yeah. Jute says that she had agreed with the plan and actually helped her come up with further steps of it after she had abducted her. and said, yeah, we do deserve this. She says, we had a weird relationship. But she's the reason there was the tally marks on the wall in the cave, because she was wheelchair bound. She just stayed there and drew marks. But when Shizuku was being tried for crime, Jute had killed her and used her body as Nora's death, put her own blood on her so the werewolves would think that was Nora, and then dug up the body from the grave, brought it over to the human side. They thought they found Louise, even though they technically did, not knowing that their Louise had been a werewolf for the past year and a half. We also skipped that the werewolves are awake at night and the humans are awake during the day, so she just never slept. She just
Never.
traveled back.
That's what that was my question. It's like she just doesn't sleep.
She's the golden werewolf. It's another, she's immune to sleep damage.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. She's the golden werewolf. Now, again, Aya's big revelation is that she did this for revenge. And then so Jute leaves and goes back to the cave, but Suguru is waiting for her there, as he was told to do, and he has the chains. And this fight's really cool because they're surrounded by candles, and she howls to knock all the candles out. And then they have this complete fight in the darkness, and we see mostly a black screen, but whenever there's a sound, it like pencil draws in like white what he's picking up from that information. So we see like a punch here, him getting scratched at, and then he punches her into the water so that when she shakes off, he ties her up, and he's like, hey, no matter how powerful a dog is, chains, or when they shake, they're always vulnerable. Oh,
I love that he brought onions too.
Yeah, to mess with her nose. The clue was the window, because the window had been broken out, but if she had been in, the werewolves can either be a giant beast man or a tiny wolf or a human. To carry off a girl would have been the giant beast form and not fit through the window, so it had to just be the small wolf.
Also, didn't come through the chimney because there wasn't soot everywhere.
Right, it was just paw prints.
So she had to already be in the room.
The person who left was a wolf. Anyway, then Aya shows up and tells him to let her go, and she's like, yeah, I messed up the revelation. I didn't solve the case. She wasn't getting revenge. So what she's really been doing is murdering girls from the human village and then mangling their face with a shotgun so that the werewolves would think that it's the werewolf girl that's murdered, but really, because these werewolves breed their girls when they're 13, she's been helping these werewolf girls escape into the regular world. That's what she really was doing. She's like, well, I did kill the human girls, and Aya's
and
like,
the painter,
and Louise. But Aya's like, yeah, but I got it wrong. So
I didn't understand.
Bank error in your favor. I don't. What?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a mistrial, Jeremy. She got a mistrial.
Yeah, I didn't understand the logic there.
They input unvetted evidence into the trial, so it's all null and void.
Yeah, I mean, she was correct though.
Acquitted with prejudice.
So that's the thing that's so crazy is like she was correct in answering who did the crime. The only thing she wasn't correct about was motive, which has no bearing on whether the crime was committed by this person. This person committed the crime regardless of motive.
I guess I saw it as, hey, we're monsters too, so we're on the monster side. You didn't kill any monsters, so
it's so bad.
Yeah. I was still like, yeah, you still murdered 4 innocent human girls. It had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
Rewind me real quick. So after the heist, they have the diamond. Why are they going to the village in the first place? Like, what's their
to
goal?
Stop Banquet.
Which they then give Banquet directions to the werewolves.
Got it.
See my frustration?
Well,
it makes no sense to me.
They're not.
Well, they did stop them from capturing a werewolf, right?
And it's not.
But you said they just needed blood.
Well, that's what I said. Yeah.
Didn't they say they wanted the ultimate werewolf version though, not just any werewolf?
That was my speculation. I don't know if they even know about it.
Yeah.
They just talked about werewolves.
I don't think they're so much trying to. It's hard to know. Are they trying to stop Banquet or just find Banquet? Because again, we got to catch that body. That's the big thing.
Well, they had to know that Banquet wasn't going to be at the werewolf's place. Like, once they've got Victor...
Well, they had a case. They got to do the case.
And they got to invite
Yeah.
Banquet to the case.
Yeah, telling Victor the location, that's definitely the sore spot here. But I guess, do they really care if Banquet gets their ultimate goal or not, or do they just want Ayu's body back?
I was about to say, because all of this did lead to them getting a lead that Banquet's headquarters is in London. So I don't know if that justifies this whole arc or not.
Okay.
Letting go. But
I don't know.
So the two villages, we really just get a scene of Aya and Suguru and Shizuku sitting on the mountain afterwards, and Suguru being like, "Do you think anyone will change?" And Aya's like, "No." He's like, "I guess you would know. You've been around a long time." And so we never actually see how the villages react to this. We're just told it'll change nothing for them. They'll still hate each other. And then they're like, "Okay, I guess we're going back to London." And Suguru's like, "I'm going to scream like you're supposed to scream on a mountain." And he yells, "Yahoo!" And everyone hears it in the whole story.
All the way from Germany, Sherlock Holmes hears it in London.
Lupin, Sherlock, they all hear it. That's the end. All right. Any last thoughts on the One Night Ultimate Werewolf Murder?
I'm just wondering who was sus. Come on. That was good.
No.
Oh.
Those are spacemen and aliens. That's not the same.
It's the same.
Is that like Amongst Us?
Yeah.
I got it.
It is the Amongst Us.
I got it.
All right. Let's go to final thoughts. Jason, what'd you think?
I had a great time with this. The whodunit was written really well. It's got some sore spots here and there, and also, as we've discussed, there's a couple things that don't quite add up or make sense. But I would definitely put this in a top 50. And also, I agree with you, Troy. I think this is like probably top 15, top 20 for anime of the year. I don't know if it's going to top out anything else, but I really enjoyed myself. I'm going to give this a 5.
You haven't watched that many anime this year.
What are you talking about?
How many anime do we watch? Like 2 a month? It's the 10th month. We probably only watched about 20. Yeah, we've probably only watched 20, and we do some twice. So, like, we've maybe watched 18 anime all year.
Right. And
so
how many
far.
come out a year? Maybe 30?
But this one's in the top 20. Thanks, Jason. That's real
Yeah, I'm here.
great.
I'm here for you.
Jeremy, what'd you think?
Oh, man. I really like it. I had a lot of fun with it. There's a few things that just really bug the heck out of me. One of them is the Victor thing. And yeah, I think all of that is going to knock it down 1 point for me. If it wasn't for that, if the story was a little bit tighter, a little bit cleaner, and maybe the last episode was a little bit more climactic. I kind of thought it was anticlimactic.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not. Like, she belabored the point. They even had to say...
One of the most battle-intensive, plus the reveal? That was anticlimactic?
The battle of the last episode didn't even compare to the battle of the middle arc. The middle arc battle was so much better.
I think the fight between Suguru and Jote was top-notch. It was just... like,
how long was that fight?
Not long, but it was beautiful, and
it was
sad because, like, she was like, you feel for her. She has a point. Whether it was revenge or helping, girls escape forced breeding, like, you feel bad for her. And then just that black and white. I was anyway, it's your review. You go ahead.
For me,
even if it's wrong. No. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
For me, I see it as like each time that they bring in something, they're upping the ante for the next thing. And especially that's true of like the final arc and the final episode. If you're going to build up something to the point where you're going to play the music and show the scenes and everything is like really intense at the start of the episode, And it was really cool. It looked really good. I came into that episode. Okay, I went to bed after watching episode 12. And I was like, I really want to watch episode 13, but it's too late. I can't. I gotta watch it in the morning. I got up, and the first thing I did is I turned on episode 13, and I was like, who's gonna survive? Who's not gonna survive? And who did it? This is gonna be so interesting. And so what I get is, like, it shifts to the fight with, like, Eric. That's the name of the Royce agent, right?
No. Kyle.
No? Kyle. Thank you.
Changes Kyle.
It switches to the fight with Kyle and Victor, and Victor's already lost. Like, I didn't see the fight. Victor's already lost.
He threw his freaking arm.
No, not yet. He's tied up in chains, and he's already lost. And I'm like, okay, I knew that Suguru was going to show up because he didn't have a defined opponent. So he's going to show up, and he's going to intervene in somebody's fight. But I was like, where is he going to show up? It's going to be really... No, boom, he's right there. Within the first, 15 seconds or whatever, we see that Victor's already lost his fight after grandstanding at the end of episode 12. And then Suguru comes in, kicks Kevin... Kyle? Kicks Kyle.
Cap.
Yes.
Kenny.
And immediately, with, the one... Okay, two kicks, right? So he kicks him, and then Victor throws his arm, which, yeah, I'll give you that. That was cool. Throws his arm, knocks him, out of his awareness, and then Tsuguru kicks him a second time, and he's dead. He never even got to, touch the ground again. It was so dumb. The fact that he died so quick, and I was like, this is going to be an interesting fight. This is going to be really cool. No. He's just gone immediately. And then I'm like, okay, well, what's going to happen with Alice and Alistair? And now a couple shots, hide behind something, take a couple more shots. Haha, I got him, walk over, and oh, you got me. Don't worry, you won't die fast. That's it. Fight over. Summed up. And that's about how long it took. And I was like, okay, so that was the two climactic fights. What about the Carmilla fight, right? This is going to be important because she's going to defeat her. And, it will be the conclusion of that fight that was started and she lost. She's ready for her this time. No, nothing happens. It's basically just more of tickle your fantasy and away with Carmilla so that Carmilla can come back next time and Shizuku will be able to tickle her fantasy again.
Carmilla likes to tickle her fantasy.
Yes. That's what I'm getting at. Excuse me. Give me a moment. There we go. That's what I'm getting out of these fights. And I'm like, okay, so then that fight was over. Was it pretty? Was it a spectacular fight? Yes. Was it sensual? Yeah, absolutely. But it was not climactic enough, and it didn't progress their relationship enough, in my opinion, for it to have...
What kind of climax were you looking for in that fight?
I was looking for the final climax, the one of a kind. Only one survives this climax. And so I didn't see that. I didn't have enough satisfaction from this particular battle. Oh, I'm gonna die. I'm not gonna be able to breathe here.
We're so far off the rails.
Yep, but
so
I'm justifying. I'm justifying. I'm almost done. And so then you have Aya explaining everything, right? Answering the whodunit mystery. And she explains it once, and then she explains it again. And I'm like, did she just explain it again? Why is it taking her so long to explain this? Why is she going over every detail so meticulously? Is it just me? And then later, he asks her, he's like, hey, it took you a really long time to explain that. Were you trying to make a point? And I'm like, okay, it's not me. She belabored the point on purpose.
No, he didn't say it took you so long to explain it. He said it took you so long to solve.
No. To explain it to them. You were making a point, he said.
No. So, okay. Clarifications for both of y'all.
Okay.
She solved the mystery as soon as she saw the window.
Mm-hmm.
She still waited 2 days to tell everyone what the answer was. He's asking why she waited so long to explain if she had known from the time she saw the crime scene. because she wanted these people to suffer a little bit to try to figure out that they are hating. Their hatred for each other is what's causing all their pain.
Okay, that's just dumb. Sorry, but that's just dumb. Why did she even go and dig up the grave then? Why did she need to keep gathering more information and say things like, "Oh, I got my last data point to prove it"? She clearly didn't have it completely solved. She just had a strong theory.
Well, she had the human side solved. I think the werewolf having murders was a new twist in it.
Yeah. Well, what I mean when I say this is dumb is like that sounds like dumb writing to me. Like if that's the decision that they made, that just makes it sound like she's grandstanding. Especially if she really didn't have a solution because she was still trying to find supporting evidence. But either way, she belabored that point. And I think they should have used some of the time that she spent explaining those things twice and put it into the battle to make the battles a little bit more climactic and interesting and given us, a little bit more concrete
It wasn't
evidence.
twice.
Huh?
She didn't explain it twice. She gave an overview and then she went over the details after that. That's
Right,
why
but-
some of the information was repeated.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, she didn't need to do that. She could have just gone over the details like she did in all the other situations. She didn't need to give an overview and then immediately give the details. They could have tightened that up. But I think also the Royce agents, like, I got the impression they died, but I'm not confident of that. One of them just said, Alice. And then it kind of panned away from him. So I don't know. Is he dead? Maybe. And then Alice, the last thing we heard was the poison won't kill you right away. Did somebody help her? Did she find a way to get an antidote or something? Or is she dead? Like, I don't know. It's just there's a lot of weird, unsolved things in the last episode of an anime that's about solving things, and it's just I don't know. I feel very unsatisfied with the state they left everything in the last episode. If not for that, I would have given it a 5. I loved everything up to episode 5 except for the Victor thing. So it's a 4 for me.
All right, it's a 5 for me. Like I said, it checks all my boxes. There are definitely plot errors, holes, whatever you want to call them. I don't care. I'm having too much fun. Enjoying the whodunits, watching the characters banter with each other back and forth. That scene with Victor when he drops them at the bottom of the waterfall. It's like, hey, look like you could get them out from Royce agents. And like I said, I didn't question it. I was just like, cool. This is cool. And then you ask, and I'm like, oh yeah, that doesn't make sense. But whatever, it was cool. I guess, when you're pulling all these literary characters and stuff, and I'm not taking it too seriously. It's a fun one for me, but it's a 5. So it works for me completely. Highly recommend. I'll be watching Undead Girl Murder Farce for as long as it runs. I'll be there. And if Sherlock Holmes ever powers up, I will lose it. All right. Our next anime, once again, is Konosuba, an explosion on this wonderful world. Again, this is the spin-off of Konosuba focused on Megumi, so don't go watch regular Konosuba if you're staying with us.
Or watch that first, because it's really good.
Yeah, it's good. Well, once again, Jason has picked an anime based on, what's that word? Teenage angst people.
Emo?
No, yeah, but what's the Japanese version?
Oh, Chunibyo?
Yes.
Chunibyo?
Jason's always getting the Chunibyo. 3 times in a row, Jason.
I don't look at the categories.
3
I
times
just
in
saw-
a row is a data point.
I saw Konosuba and I was like, that's right. I wanted to watch that.
I actually wouldn't even know what that thing was if it wasn't for Konosuba having taught us, but because of Megumi's Village. So I can't be too harsh about it. All right. if you have thoughts on Undead Girl Murder Farce, we would love to hear it. Please leave a message on our Twitter account at Baka Podcast or our website, theanimebakaclub.com. There's a contact us button there. Or leave a comment wherever you found the podcast. Those usually get back to us. If you don't get an answer, I was probably lazy. But if you really, really don't get an answer, then maybe not that website. Come to our website. Our website's great. All right. With that, I think it's time for us to say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
Sayonara.